Hello, and welcome to this week's Charity Digital News webinar. My name is Chris Hall. I'm the marketing manager here at Charity Digital News. To those of you who've joined us before, it's great to have you back. And to our first-time listeners, we hope today's session will be the first of many with the Charity Digital community. For our first-timers, here's a quick overview of what we do at Charity Digital News. Charity Digital News is part of Tech Trust, a charity focused on helping other charities to maximise their impact through the use of digital technology. As part of our offerings, we have saved charities over £225 million through TT Exchange, a programme that gives charities access to discount and donated tech products like Microsoft Office 365. We also have our own white-labelled email platform, TT Mail, that we offer to charities at a discounted rate. It's based on the dot mailer technology and offers a fresh alternative to solving some of the pain points of MailChimp and other platforms. We also host the Charity Digital Jobs platform, which connects charities to top digital recruits looking for the next role. And of course, there's Charity Digital News, an online education platform that aims to inspire charities to adopt digital tech through articles, events, webinars, and more. We're back in Reading today with the Microsoft team for the last in our four-part Microsoft Skills series. The webinar today will cover a mix of slides and demos to show you the full capabilities of Microsoft Teams and how you can maximize its potential to bring people and workflows together to enable teamwork. And as always, make sure you stick around for our Q&A segment at the end of the session. If you wish to submit a question, you can do so on a desktop by hitting the question mark in the purple speech bubble in the top right of your screen. And on a phone or tablet, you can use the white Q&A speech bubble also in the top right of your screen. We'll also be making a recording of the webinar available on the Charity Digital News website. And we aim to share this with you and any other additional resources that come up via email within a week or so. So that's enough from me for now. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Amang and the Microsoft team. Welcome, Amang.
So thanks for the introduction, Chris, and hello to everyone else. Thank you guys for joining. My name is Umang, and I'm part of the CDC team bringing you these wonderful webinars. But my day job is usually working with the financial services industry on their technology transformation. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the fourth in our series of digital skill webinars. I really can't believe that this is the last one. It feels as though we've only just started. But thanks to everyone who has stayed with us during all of them, and no worries if you haven't. The links to them will be shared towards the end. So a bit about us. The picture in the bottom left corner is the Charity Digital Champions volunteer team. And with the wider social impact team here in the UK, their mission, or our mission should I say, is to create opportunities for our talented employees to share their expertise with charities, young people, schools and community groups as well. Now for our previous webinars, we have shown you our mission statement. So for this one, I thought I could share how this resonates with our CEO, Satya Nadella. This is one of those quotes. Our customers and society expect us to maximize the value of technology innovations while preserving the values that are timeless. So now let's move on to what you do. As a charity, you are addressing a world of need. Without you, I'm unsure of how many of the world's issues would even be known, yet alone addressed. As a planet, I admit we do have a long way to go, but I would just like to take a moment to say thank you for bringing us closer to eradicating poverty and other obstacles as well. Now, we want to help you. So how do we do that? Well, through the Lloyd's Business Digital Index, we know that 48% of charities and 42% of small businesses here in the UK lack basic digital skills. And I genuinely think that this needs to change. So why do we choose to end our series on this product? Because it's the future of modern working. Teams is more than just a chatting service. You see, it's a window into your collaborative digital workspace, which contains everything you need from files, chats, and virtual meeting rooms. When I start my laptop up, it's not my emails, which I check first, but Teams. It's as user-friendly, if not more user-friendly than some of the social media apps that we have today. There's not really an overload of information, and it's easy to set and see my priorities as well. So what do we mean by digital? I know it's probably in your head right now, social media, but let me tell you that just having a Twitter account does not qualify your charity or organization to being digitally mature. You need to use technology to the best of your ability to create content, collaborate and share with your team and wider society. And the way tech helps charities are noted there in those 3 main bullet points. This is a case study, and it's to do with cats protection. It's very easy to view. There's a video on this link, so I'm not going to talk too much around it, but I will just highlight some of the main benefits and uses that they had of Office 365. This charity is dedicated to the welfare of cats, and they aim to rehome as many cats in the UK as possible. They have 500 employees and 10,000 volunteers who are critical to the success of the charities. And they found issues with their existing extranet not really being suited to the needs of the volunteers. It was difficult to navigate and often provided wrong and outdated information. They partnered with Foundation SP and saw Office 365 as their main solution point. So without further ado, here are your speakers, Rich and Priyanka, who are going to take you through the content. Rich will be here with us, but Priyanka is on holiday in the Canary Islands, so she'll be joining us remote. I know she's dedicated, right?
Thanks, Imang. Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Stewart. I am a technical account manager at Microsoft. So most of my time is actually spent advising customers, and like Imang, I actually also work with customers in the financial services industry. But I spend a lot of my time advising them on how to make the most of Microsoft's technology to actually improve user experience. So not too dissimilar to what you guys are trying to achieve. And I'm going to run you through a demo of Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft Teams is a product that I've been close to for a very, very long time, or what feels like a very long time. So I actually started using it when it was first in preview internally here at Microsoft, and I'm still on the internal preview team. So I have a lot of experience working with the product, but also showing it to customers and talking about it in general. So I kind of live and breathe Microsoft Teams, and a lot of my colleagues actually, they refer to me as Mr. Teams, because not only is it that I know quite a lot about it, but I talk about it all the time. So I'm just going to switch over to the demo environment to show you. And let me just click out of the presentation here. Okay. Now, let me find the right Teams window. There it is. Perfect. Okay, so what you should be able to see on your screens now is the web version of Microsoft Teams. Now, the first caveat I will say is that I'm using this in one of our demonstration environments, meaning that all of the teams over on the left-hand side that you see, and we'll come into talking about those in more detail when I hand over to Priyanka, and she'll run you through the slides that we've got prepared for you, is that it's catered towards a variety of different purposes, different teams within inside, you know, what we classify as a typical organization. So I'm going to run through some scenarios, and then I'm going to talk to you about how I would speak about it to charities and other customers in general as well. So the Microsoft Teams client here on the web is near enough identical to the Teams client on the desktop. So what you see on here is, if you were to download Microsoft Teams, this is actually the view that you would see. Now, Teams is quite an interesting product, and one of the common questions I get asked as I demonstrate it to anybody really is, what does it all mean? How do I use it? How do I navigate through it and move around Teams, and therefore make the most of actually utilizing it? And mainly, how do I save myself some time? So over here on the left-hand side, we have these icons here, these 5 icons here. Now at the top, we have the activity, which is kind of where we were before. And this normally would show an activity feed of anything that goes on inside Teams that I'm a part of. So if I get a message, someone sends me an instant message, someone mentions me in a group chat, I will see a notification of that here. So if I go into clicking this drop down box for feed, I've got my activity, and this will show anything that I've done. And we'll come into showing a little bit more about this in a second. Then if I navigate down one, I've got chat. This is where I see all of my instant messages. So if anybody's used Skype for Business before, this will be where all of your chats would live. And actually, kind of like Aman said earlier, this is similar to some of our social media apps. I know if anybody uses Messenger on Facebook or WhatsApp or any of those kind of social media chat-based apps, this has a very, very similar interface to those, where you have a list of chats with everybody who you're talking with, and then a main chat window over here. So I've thanked Brian for his. I'm Megan in this example. So hi Megan, how are you? I'm very well, thank you. So I'm thanking Brian for his participation in a brainstorming session yesterday, and I have the ability down here to type that new message out to him and say, once again, Brian, thanks very much. I can send that message to Brian, he'll get that along with the timestamp. But also down here, I've got a load of different options. So I can actually change the formatting of my message. I can add bold, italics, and generalized formatting stuff. I can also, if I click on this exclamation mark this message as important. And that also means that anybody in the team gets a notification to say an important message has been posted and that you should go and read it, which is quite useful when you have big announcements to make. I can also, down here, attach anything. So I can attach files from OneDrive or upload documents from my PC and attach those into files for Brian. And the great thing about this is that I don't have to then try and email over big files, which is something that, you know, depending on how much storage space you have, and storage space is a premium in some cases, you can actually just add that to Teams and add that to Teams chats. And particularly if you're sending things like large presentations or anything like that, this is particularly useful. I can also make my chats a little bit more fun, as we've got this little GIF up here. I can add in smileys. There we are. Oops. I don't want to send Brian a laughing face, but I can add in a variety of smileys as I would be able to do on my smartphones. Just liven things up a little bit, make it a little bit less formal, which is not what Teams is about. Similarly, I can add, as I've done up there, a load of GIFs, and I can search from the GIFRY library. So I'm going to search for another thanks image for Brian, and I can add in all number of GIFs again to make my chat more interesting, make it more fun, make it less formal. Kind of like other products out there, I can also add stickers. So I can send Brian a little sticker, change the message maybe. Yeah, and just send that over to Brian. There we go. I can also schedule a meeting directly with Brian directly in Teams. So I can actually, by clicking on that, you'll see that it's already got Brian's email address or email address as an attendee there, plus me as the organizer. And it allows me to pick a time. And actually, I can see Brian's meeting status right here under his name. So without having to go and check his calendar, I can see when he's going to be available for a meeting. I can also bring in the scheduling assistant back here. But even more handily, Teams is suggesting times that Brian and I are both free. And if I just click on that, there we are. It's added it to the suggestion. All I need to do now is add a title, a location, which could be an internal meeting room if you're inside an office, and schedule that. I can also invite other people, or, and I'll come into talking a bit more about this in a second, add it directly to a team channel if I need to. And close that out. There we go. Discard those changes. So chat is really, really powerful. It's not just talking about a one-to-one conversation. I can also have a group conversation by adding anyone in over here, or I can make a call directly to Brian, because actually maybe me typing something out would be take far longer than me just giving him a call and saying, thanks, Brian, thanks for your help today. So there we are. So that's chat. I can also, you may have noticed this little who over here. Now, this symbol here indicates that who is a bot, and actually I can add bots into chats, and you can add in bots. There are a load of bots, and down here we've got the store that allows you to add in different apps and add-ins to Teams, one of those being bots. You can also create your own bots using the Microsoft Bot Framework. Who here is a very simple one, and what it does is actually it allows you to ask it a question to tell you about people inside your organization. So, for example, you could say, I might know the manager of so-and-so, and I want to find out who's on their team or who works underneath them, or I want to find out who the manager of so-and-so is. And I can actually just ask that in a natural way. So I can, who has the same manager as, not Brain, as Brian. I keep typing brain, as Brian. And when I do that, who's going to respond back? And no other people who have the same manager as Brian. So apparently we have the same manager, which is great. So really simple, but the bot replies really quickly with that kind of information. And again, it means I don't have to go out and search a company directory. I don't have to go out and search for information in other applications. I can actually do all of that from within Teams. Now, let's talk about some of these other options. So we've got Teams here, and this is the meat and bones of what Microsoft Teams is really centered around. Priyanka is going to talk through that in more detail in a moment. So what I'm going to focus on is these other options. So we have the calendar here, and again, this is a window into my calendar that's in Outlook, and this allows me to see all of my meetings. So I've got here an online meeting. I've also got a meeting later on which has a physical location, and I can see all the attendees, etc. And I can join this meeting. If it's a Microsoft Teams meeting, I can join it from within inside the application. Again, like I did with Brian here, I can also schedule meetings. So I click on schedule meeting down here, and I can schedule that meeting, and I can invite anyone or a group of people to that meeting, and we can have that as a Microsoft Teams meeting, or as mentioned, as a physical meeting in a meeting room. Now, one thing that I will say about this, and as I mentioned, I've been working with Teams for quite a long time. Soon we'll have the capability for this to completely replicate your calendar. So you'll be able to see your week view, your month view, and therefore schedule meetings as you would do utilizing your calendar, which is really fantastic. Because for me, like Amang said earlier, the first application that I always fire up is Teams, because I use chat in Teams to talk with my colleagues. I use Teams itself to talk with the variety of people that I'm in Teams with. That could be across the organization, that could be outside the organization. And I also schedule meetings with, say, my manager for a one-to-one or something like that. I schedule that all through the calendar without having to go into my email client, which is really, really useful. Now, we also have down here files. Now, Teams itself is built atop SharePoint. So at the moment, I have cloud storage for OneDrive, but let me be honest, not everybody uses Microsoft products for everything, right? Not all of you use OneDrive for business. Not all of you use SharePoint. Well, as I mentioned already, Teams is designed to be flexible and interop with some of our partners, and in some cases competitors, actually. So if I go down here, I've got add cloud storage. You might be using Dropbox, you might be using Box or Google Drive. Guess what? You can have your files in Microsoft Teams. If I click on the Dropbox, all I have to do is sign into my Dropbox account. Not that I do have a Dropbox account, I do really. So I sign in with my Dropbox account, and bang, my Dropbox storage is now available in Microsoft Teams. I can now start working on and uploading documents and sharing documents from within Dropbox directly to Microsoft Teams and all of the people that I'm connected with in Microsoft Teams, which is really, really great news. I can also look at recent documents I've been working on or looked at, and go into documents that are stored within the Teams client itself. So here they all are. And I can open those up and actually start editing them inside Microsoft Teams. So that's really, really beneficial. Over here, we also have, through these little dots, is the apps that are built into Teams, or at least connect to Microsoft Teams. One is OneNote. And actually, OneNote forms the basis. If I go into the Teams here for a second, it forms the basis of the wiki in each of these Teams clients. So I can actually create a OneNote for each team, which is really handy. I can also add in Planner if I wanted to do sort of Kanban board style management of tasks. I can also add in shifts, which is Office 365's or Microsoft 365's scheduling system for rota workers, etc., which is really handy. And I can also add in Microsoft Stream, which is our internal on-demand video platform. And again, as I mentioned already, we've got Who here. So if I add in any bots or any further apps, if I click on that, I've got the access to the Microsoft Teams App Store, and I can add in a variety of third-party plugins or applications into Microsoft Teams for a variety of different reasons. So that's these 5 icons over here. And as mentioned, Priyanka is going to go into more detail on Teams. But the last thing I really wanted to cover off was this search box at the top. One of the things that we've been doing for quite some time is improving our search experience, and Microsoft Teams is no different to that. This search box allows you to search for a variety of things. You can search for files, you can search for chats, you can search for your name in a team when someone's mentioned you, you can search for documents that are inside Teams. So anything that's inside Teams, you can search for it utilizing this search box. And search is incredibly powerful and incredibly extensible, which is really, really handy. There we go. Perfect. So one of the last things I really wanted to cover off, and I think it's really important, particularly for the variety of you that may be working in a variety of different roles across charity, whether that is whether you're talking with volunteers out in the field, whether you're the HR, finance / everything person, or people. Teams is really extensible and allows you to use that inside of this chat functionality in Teams. One of the really useful things, and I mentioned before about GIFs and making things fun, right? We've got SpongeBob saying thanks to Mark thanks for the performance increases to the entire team here. Is actually can collaborate on documents seamlessly whilst inside Teams. So if I click on this document here, Mark 8 performance chart, there we are. It's going to open an Excel spreadsheet inside of the Teams window. Now up here in the top right, I have the edit capabilities. And if I click on the drop down, I can edit it in 3 different locations. I can edit that in Teams directly, just like I'm seeing this view right now. I can edit it in Excel on the desktop, or I could edit it in Excel online. Now, if I edit in Teams or Excel online, one of the benefits of that, I'm just going to click on that to show you, is I get collaboration and the capability to collaborate with anybody inside this team. So anybody who clicks on that document within that team gets this exact same window, this exact same screen, and we can actually collaborate on this document together at the same time without ever having to leave Teams, which is really good. And again, it kind of reinforces that for us, the modern workplace, the modern place to collaborate and communicate is inside one application where you can talk whilst working on the same document, or vice versa. You can work on a document, then go back and talk about it and write what notes you have, etc. So if I click on that, there we are. I'm just going to close that down. Equally, up on the top here, we've got files, which relates to the files of this team, and also applications. But as part of that, I can pin documents. So if I want everybody to know the FAQ on the Mark 8 quadcopter here, I can just pin that to the top so everybody's got it easily accessible. And again, just like I demonstrated with Excel, with that Excel spreadsheet there, I can seamlessly edit this and collaborate with others on editing it at the same time, all within Teams, all without leaving Teams. It's really great. And it really saves time where you're having to switch between open documents and you want to collaborate with other people. It really saves time in doing that. So I wanted to hand over to Priyanka, as she's going to go through what the structure of these teams is. I've just covered off a really quick aspect of my favorite feature, which is this collaboration stuff. But Priyanka's going to go through this in more detail and how collaboration in Teams through chat actually works at a much deeper level. Priyanka, over to you.
Hi, it's nice to meet you all, well, virtually anyway. I'm Priyanka, so I'm a customer success manager, and like Rich and like Umang, I really sit in kind of showing customers how to actually utilize what they've bought into, and all the great Office 365 features and products, and how to really make sure that you can develop into a good modern workplace. So for me, I only started the business back in July, so Teams is really the only form of collaboration I know, and for me, I think it was a fantastic place to land, because like what Rich has gone through, you've got the chat, you've got the Teams, you've got everything all centralized in one place, and it just makes my life a lot easier and allowed me to set into the business a lot faster. So I will take you through the purpose of Teams channels. So an important thing to note is that channels is a central point for your wider team collaboration. So here you're moving away from those one-to-one and group chats that Rich mentioned. So, you know, it's just quick intermediary chats into the core of the projects that are central to your business. Channels are dedicated sections within a team to kind of keep those conversations, projects, tasks, and disciplines really streamlined. So you can see there at the top, you have Mark 8 project team. You have things like general, which is an automatic channel created when creating a Teams channel. And then thereafter, you can filter it when and where you see fit. So if it's specific to your project, specific to your task, and specific to your discipline. Teams channels are places where everybody can openly have conversations and share files, collaborate on files. As Rich has shown, you can add in bolts, you can add in connectors, for all the third-party apps you use. A key thing to know also is that every time you create a new Teams channel, you automatically actually create a Teams page in the SharePoint, in the background. So where you've uploaded all your files, you uploaded all that conversation, things like that, it all actually exists in like a backend kind of thing, where your files and everything's there. So say if you do delete a channel because say you finished with it, and you want to access some of the old files in there, you can actually go back into the SharePoint and see things like that. And also additionally, when you do things like co-authoring, when you're trying to work on the document at the same time and things like that, often you might have made changes that someone else isn't too happy with. You can actually pop back into SharePoint and see versioning history, so that you can always have the right pieces of the right document as well for you.
Just quickly, did you want me to bring the deck back up for you, or would you prefer to take control of the demo?
I think I'll just take control of the demo if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I won't do like too much of a demo though for you, but I'll keep it simple. So in terms of organization of Teams channels, you can see here that it's a collection of people and content and tools surrounding different projects. So it's really specific to your business and your use case. We always advise that you sit down with your wider team and have a think about what's relevant to your team, what projects are you working on, what's specific to you. And using it with the idea, it's like all about initiative-based projects, and this can help deal with tasks which require cross-organizational collaboration. So say, for example, you're part of the HR team, and you have you need to help onboard, say, a set of new employees that are coming into the business. You want to think about how you can probably use a Teams channel to upload documents that say everybody needs to fill out, no matter who they are or where they are from the business, when onboarding a new employee. And with that in mind, the naming of such channels should be totally relevant to your industry and the people who are using them. So what can you actually do in channels as well? So you can see at the bottom here, you have a chat function like you have in the Teams chat itself. So you have the same capabilities to format messages using the A button just there. If I click on it here, you have a slightly more bigger capability if it loads that will allow you to format messages a little bit differently. So you can actually add subject headings to the conversation. You can format the messages, get bold, you can get italics and all those kind of things like that. So you've got quite extensive levels of capabilities, and you can add in GIFs. A good thing to mention as well that you can actually mention people within a channel. So say if there's someone in the channel, you really want to get their attention, you can mention them to draw them to the relevant conversation. You can also mention the channel as a whole. And what that means is when you want to get the attention of everybody in the channel, you can mention it, and it should be able to just, if I do it here for you, if I mention, still there. Oh. You can see me now as well. Yeah, you can see I mentioned Mark 8 project team, and then that should get the attention of the whole team as well, which would be really good. Yeah, so then moving on from that as well, you can get access to things like the 3 dots in there as well. So you can copy links from channel messages. So say if you're referring to a specific message within that team, you can actually click on those 3 dots, and it will enable you to copy a link, and you can send that in the chat to say someone else, and when they click on that link, it will redirect them to the Teams channel message itself, which is really good as well. You can also bookmark messages, which is also really useful as well. So if I click here, sorry, I don't think it was loading very much. Yeah, you see you've got copy link here. So if I click on that, it's copied to clipboard, and you can just search all V and you can copy into a chat so someone can know exactly what you're talking about. You can also, that's the bookmark thing that I was talking about. So, say something's important to you, you can bookmark it, and that will be saved up in your icon bit here. And you go on saved, and those messages or important kind of conversation that you want will be saved there as well, which is very useful. You've also then, like Rich mentioned, you've got the files tab. So when you like chat, you can upload files using the paperclip button at the bottom in the conversation bit. which is really useful as well. So, every time you upload a file into Teams, it's uploaded into OneDrive automatically. So you've always got that one master copy that exists in the cloud, which is always fantastic as well. And also, Rich has obviously gone through all the files bits, how you can open in various different platforms, but all of the edits made will just retain in that master copy, which I think is really useful as well. So also, you've got the channel settings as well, which I think is quite important. So if I click here as well on the three dots, you can have the option to hide channels as well, things that aren't relevant to you, or perhaps you're not actually using if you've got an overload of channels as well. You can add channels as well, which I believe only the owner of the channel can actually do. You can add members, which again, only the owner of the channel can do. You can edit the team, and you can also get links to the team as well, which is also really useful. Because again, if you're referring to something that exists within a team and you want to draw someone's attention to it, it's just an easy way to do it. Also at the top here, next to name, you'll get things like getting an email address to the channel as well. So for me, I do product updates for my team, for example, and I send it out via email to my team every month. Now I kind of move it into Teams. So what I'll do is while I'll email it to the team alias as a whole, I'll also email it to the Teams team itself. And that email will then pop up into this conversation bit of Teams and as an email format, and it will show them exactly what I put in my email, which I think is really useful as well. You can follow the channel so you can make sure they get regular updates, and you also have the option, to open in SharePoint, which again is really useful. And I believe that is it from me.
Before we head into the Q&A, I thought I would like to share some further resources to help us continue this conversation. As after these webinars, we always get asked, what can we do next? How can we get more engaged? So these links have information on our donations and discount offers for charities, a useful white paper to help you understand some of the context around how technology can help charities, and finally, our help desk for queries that you might have around our technology offers. I also wanted to draw your attention to Charity Digital Code if you haven't already come across this. It's a wonderful resource designed by many of your charity thought leaders, such as Aveco, the Small Charities Coalition, the Charity Commission, and of course Tech Trust. There are 171 charity representatives that are involved. It's the UK's first digital code of practice for charities, and it has been created to provide practical advice on improving a charity's digital capabilities. It's definitely well worth exploring, and just like these webinars, if you are finding them useful, we hope you are. Please champion them within your own organizations and share them out as well. Just a quick Bing or Google search will help you find the necessary information. And finally, what's coming up next? Well, first, there'll be a feedback form sent out about this webinar. Please do take some time to fill this out. We read every single comment and every single piece of feedback. It will only take you 3 to 5 minutes, and it's the only gauge that we have to see if whether or not you are finding these sessions useful. So please do let us know your thoughts. So Chris, how are we doing on the Q&A?
Thanks, Umang, and thank you, Rich and Priyanka, for a great presentation and some amazing insights into the functionality of Microsoft Teams and how it can make us charities more collaborative. So we're going to dive into the Q&As. We've got 18 questions come in so far, which is amazing. If you have a question and haven't got round to submitting it yet, you can do so by hitting the purple Q&A box on the top right hand corner of your desktop, or the white Q&A box on the top right hand corner of your phone or tablet. Or if you're using the app, I do believe it's in the bottom right hand corner. So I hope you managed to find it and get a question posted. To begin with, we've got a few questions from some anonymous users asking, can you add an external person to Teams and just chat with them, or if they don't necessarily have an Office 365 account?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking. Let me just move closer to the mic. That's better. There we go. Yes, you can. So we enabled guest users to be part of a Microsoft team. I want to say August. I think it was August. Yeah. So you can add anyone external to your organization to be able to join a chat or a team. The only thing we would suggest though is that, and this is a bit of best practice guidance that I generally advise everybody on, is a guest user, once you add them to a team, will have access to everything in that team. So chat and files, etc., in a Teams channel, they're all persistent. So one of the great things about that is if you bring in a new employee, they'll be able to see everything. They'll be able to see the entire history. They can just go back and you can say, hey, all of the information you need is inside this team. Let me add you to the team. Just go through and read all the conversations, have a look at the files. It's all in there. Now, if you add an external user to that team, they have the same level of access. So one of the things that we always suggest is if you have information that you don't want someone to see that's external, at this moment in time, add them to a separate team that you can just have conversations with them. For one-to-ones chats, yeah, it's not a problem at all. You just type in their email address and you'll be able to chat one-to-one. A little quick thing that I do want to share is that last year we announced the capability for what we classify as private channels inside of Teams. That functionality is now in testing, so we will have by the end of the summer and potentially sort of autumn time the capability to have channels that are actually hidden from certain users and also from certain guests as well. So we're fully invested in Teams, and we have quite a public roadmap on what we're doing with Teams, but that's a really a hot take, I suppose, off the press to tell you that we are invested in that kind of usage in terms of adding guests and stuff like that.
Super, thank you very much. We've had a couple of integration questions from some of our listeners, including Jonathan and Diane. How does Microsoft Teams integrate with other Microsoft Office apps? For example, how do you attach a document or a link from SharePoint? Does it integrate automatically with your Outlook calendar? Will Yammer chats automatically show up, or does Teams replace all of these features?
That is a really good question. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to answer that because it's a multifaceted question. So Teams, the best way to think about it, and I've explained Teams to a variety of people using this analogy. Teams is essentially the window into Office 365. So how we think about it is that you have all of these Office 365 apps, including the Office client applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, etc. And Teams allows you to add in files like we showed you in the demo, so that you can actually collaborate on those live and seamlessly within Teams. You can also add in some of the other pieces of Office 365 functionality, things like Planner, they can be added into there. Now, SharePoint is actually the backbone to Teams. So when you create a team, it creates an Office 365 group for that, which in itself creates a SharePoint site, a shared calendar, and a shared mailbox so that you can communicate and share all in that one location. If you have a file that's in another SharePoint site, you can grab the link to that and paste it inside of Teams, and Teams will just link to it seamlessly. Or you can upload that file to Teams, and then it will also be available inside the Teams SharePoint site for seamless collaboration with everybody inside that team. So I hope that answers the question. But yeah, to go back to the beginning, it is the window into Office 365, and we've built it so that all of the Office 365 products, features, and capabilities are there in Teams.
Super, thanks very much. We have a question from Rachel here. Does the chat section work the same as Skype for Business count, or is there? How does the kind of functionality work with that? Are they separate or are they the same?
So if I interpret this, I think there are two ways to interpret that. And if I think about what you're trying to get at, Rachel, is that if one user's on Skype for Business and one's on Teams, I hope that is what you're referring to. What it comes up with is a message that says the person you're talking to is using Skype for Business. Some Microsoft Teams functionality will not be available. Now, that functionality is all the kind of cool stuff we showed at the bottom. When you're talking to someone who's utilizing Skype, you'll have chat functionality. You still have persistent chat in Teams, so all of your chat history with that person will show up if you're using Teams. For them on Skype for Business, it doesn't. So you have the chat capability and you can call them, but you can't add in other people to that chat. You can't schedule a meeting with them. You can't use stickers or GIFs or emojis with them, but you can just have you can still have a conversation. And actually Microsoft ran that seamlessly for about 6 months side by side as we were making our transition to Teams as a business, and it worked quite well.
Great, thanks a lot, Rich. We have a question from Dale here, and Dale, thank you for the kind words as well. He said thank you for a very clear presentation. So I'm a good fella in your cup there, Rich.
Thank you.
What he asks is, his question is, for a team that is not confident with technology, or do you have any tips or tricks to lead the skills and confidence change that is needed?
Yeah,
for people to adopt.
Yeah,
Teams?
great question. One of the things that I found with teams, and I have to have these conversations, and I think it's probably similar for you as well, Umang, is that actually once teams get shown to people, I think people really get hooked in on the really fun features of Teams. GIFs seem to send everybody like crazy. I don't know why. But we found that actually Teams takes off quite virally inside an organizations because it's completely different to email, and it's more akin to how people use chat with smartphone messaging apps. So in that case, it kind of takes off in that regard, and definitely one of the tips that I've always had and always talk about with customers, organizations, whoever, is allow that virality to happen, because a lot of the time, a lot of people just want to lock it down and control it, and have users not be able to do certain things. But actually, if you let them explore it and use it, they'll talk to their friends about it. They'll talk to people across the organization. Hey, are you on Microsoft Teams yet? Because I really want to send you this really funny emoji or this funny GIF or sticker or something like that. And that actual freedom drives adoption. And you'll find the best thing to do will be nominate a change champion, just one person who likes the look of it, or maybe they've used a competitor product, or they've started exploring with collaboration in something like Google Drive or something like that. Get them on board, and that kind of they can act as the catalyst to then really drive that forwards. But as I said, we found that Teams just spreads naturally once you let the security and IT people, once you rein them in a little bit and lock them in a box. The actual most normal users really enjoy actually utilizing the capabilities of Teams.
Oh, Rich, if I could add as well, the best
sure.
place I think to start as well, we always advise our customers to just start in chat. I mean, you may have like a WhatsApp group, say, that you use with your employees on a social basis, say. Try and move that into Teams. It's just one starting point and something that you can kind of change for tomorrow. And once they get used to those basic functionalities, like Rich said, it just spirals and it will just go on its own flow. But I would recommend starting in chat.
And I think in the charity sector as well, if you're an organization that employs volunteers, then this is a key opportunity, because you can take chat away from those unsecured, non-controlled applications, because Teams is the same on mobile, on smartphones at least, as it is on the desktop and on the web. So you can actually have group chats, you can have Teams, you can have all the channels and have access, and all of those people, wherever they are, can contribute to that. It's exactly the same if you're in an office, whether you're collaborating or whatever your role is inside an office, you still have that same capability, just using the desktop or the web. So it's a really, really great way of bringing people together, utilizing one platform with all of the information controls that you get from Office 365.
Thank you. We have a question from an anonymous listener here, asking how you can see previous versions of documents in Teams, but I want to build that into a little bit of a larger question, more of how does Teams work internally for an organization? I think that can come in as part of that.
Yeah, that's a good and broad question. Thanks, Chris, and to the anonymous listener. So, Priyanka, you touched on this a little bit in terms of file history. Did you want to cover that in slightly more detail?
Yeah, sure. So normally, like I said, when you create a new Teams channel, and SharePoint site, is creating the background for that Teams page specifically. So once you go into your SharePoint page, you can actually go into that Teams SharePoint and you can see conversation, you can see files and things like that. when you click on the files, 3 dots for Microsoft, especially in its new version, is your best friend. So you click on those 3 dots and you can see open version history. A bar will pop up on the side, and you can see for, say, the marketing document, you can see version 1.0, 2.0, and you'll have a date attached to it when they were last edited and saved. That's probably the best way to look at it, I think, if I'm right.
Yeah, and honestly, the amount of times where I've edited a document, where I've downloaded a document from Teams, and then forget completely that it's in SharePoint, meaning that everybody else can see what I'm doing, and then remember I needed to save a copy of that. When I do that handily, you get a reminder in Office, and it tells you, do you know that everybody can see what you've done? Did you mean to save a copy beforehand? If so, use file history and version history to go back to the version you didn't edit and then save that one. And I've then had to save a copy of my document and then go back to the version 45 minutes ago, so that everybody else doesn't see my changes. But so you can do it inside SharePoint, or you can do it inside Word, Excel, and PowerPoint for version history. And the documents are always saved to that team SharePoint site, no matter where they're opened. So any changes that are made, everybody else can see them, which is great if you're working on a marketing document or a marketing plan or something like that, and you need lots of people's input. But you want to make sure and you have the capability to control that input a little bit, or at least go back in time should something happen to that document.
I also advise for my customers, say if you have quite a few people working on the document, maybe use things like commenting and things like that to avoid, any overlaps and things like that. Or, if you want to make big changes to a document, we do suggest just using commenting, because if there's lots of changes being made, more often than not, it does make version history finding a little bit confusing.
Yeah, and it's Teams really facilitates that live chat, because you can use comments, but you can also use messages in Teams. Once you've attached a document to a channel or inside a channel, you can then communicate, say, I edited today at 5 p.m. this is what I added in that chat, and everybody can continue doing that, and everybody else will be able to see what that comment is. So Chris, to go back to your wider question, can you just repeat that for a second?
Sure. It was, how does Teams work internally for an organization? Okay,
yeah, that is a much bigger question. So Teams is, let me actually start with where Microsoft, where we see where we see Office 365, collaboration, communication, etc. We see Teams as sort of sitting in the middle, that offers that inter-team, intra-team, and in some cases company-wide communications platform. So Teams, as Priyanka kind of suggested, and this gets really confusing sometimes, talking about Teams and when you're talking about Teams. But anyway, so when we talk about Teams, that is the structure that is a series of channels. What that's really designed for is a team of people who naturally would work together. So you could be part of the marketing team, you could be part of the finance team, you could be part of the managing team who looks after volunteers, you could be a project team. So now naturally that's a team of people who want to collaborate and communicate with one another, and we suggest a team is created for those people so that they can communicate, collaborate on documents, share information, etc., all inside that team. Now, we mentioned earlier with the first question that actually you can add guests and other people into a team, and that allows you to collaborate sort of outside of your immediate sphere of people, so that you can collaborate maybe across an organization, or maybe outside of the organization between 2 different organizations, because maybe a project needs to there's multiple parties that need to help land a volunteering drive, or a marketing project, or funding drive, etc. So you can do that all within a team as well. So when it comes to how does Teams work inside the organization, you can use it with those inter teams, but also, as I said already, intra teams. So you can have people collaborating on one big project who might be from multiple different parts of the organization all together as one team, and that's that, like we saw in the Mark 8 example, that's that project team, and everybody's communicating and collaborating. So it facilitates that kind of Venn diagram of overlapping people and teams all together, all collaborating, all communicating, all at the same time.
Great, thanks a lot, Rich. question here from another anonymous listener. He says, or she says, sorry. It seems that teams can do anything, even make a cup of tea. It's not always easy to see how to do a particular thing. What is the best way to stay on top of all the capabilities, get genned up, etc.?
That's a really good question, and actually leads into a tip. So Teams has a really handy help function. So in the search bar, if you put a backslash, I think it's backslash. No, it's /, there we go, a /, it actually will show you a list of loads of commands that you can do inside of Teams. So you can type /DND, for example, that will change your status to do not disturb. You can type /help, and it will bring up the help icon and everything that's contained in the help icon down the bottom. You can just click on help in the bottom left hand corner, and that will bring up a load of handy things to just get you started on Teams. But that search bar really is the gateway to helping you out with how to use Teams, and the / is really useful because it will show you a list of things that, you know, in some cases I've never seen before. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. I know we covered this briefly before, but I wanted, when we were talking about integrations, but we're getting a lot of questions about the specific integration with Yammer.
Yeah.
Had one with Joe. So
I did actually miss that in a further question. So thank you for asking that again.
Cool. So yeah, let's deep dive into that a little bit more. I think. What are the main differences between Teams and Yammer, and how do they best work together?
Great question, and I think this is something that the Teams guys love and hate answering at the same time. So I kind of mentioned before about Microsoft and how we think about communication collaboration at the organization. So Teams is one-to-one, one-to-many kind of chats. But obviously we bought Yammer, and lots of people ask us, well, is Yammer defunct now because you've got Teams? And actually we're trying to carve out two different purposes for them. So if I give the example of how we use Teams and Yammer, as I mentioned, Teams is kind of that, you know, we work with immediate teams or cross-function teams here at Microsoft. But what we use Yammer for is sort of that cross-company communication, that collaboration, etc. So when I want to talk to the entire of the technical account manager community at Microsoft, I don't do that with Teams, I do that in Yammer, because that's a large number of people. So we use Yammer for that, and that chat, Yammer chat, and threads and updates and notifications in there. So that's the kind of the way we look at it. Teams is for small to medium-sized teams within an organization. Yammer is for communication to the entire organization. So yeah, that's the basics of where we see you should use both. Yammer and Teams, there is integral functionality between the two. It wasn't great, not going to lie to you all, it wasn't great. But one of the things that we have done is taken that back to the drawing board, and we're going to integrate Yammer and Teams much more broadly. So at the moment, you can share a Yammer message from Yammer into Teams. You can actually add a Yammer page as a Teams site, so it will appear in the top bar like I showed with the documents, so that Teams can get people inside a team can get notified when messages get posted to Yammer. But what we're going to be working on is kind of putting them at the same platform in terms of more in-depth notifications. So when you reply someone on Yammer, that will also show up for them on Teams if they've got that functionality turned on. So better codependency is coming, but at the moment you can add Yammer sites to Teams in the same way that you would a website or a SharePoint site or a document, and you can also be notified via Yammer's notifications in Teams. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you. The sticker on integrations, someone's asked a question about a bit more of a deep dive into the SharePoint and Teams.
Yeah.
When setting up a team channel, will a page automatically be set up? Is this within a current SharePoint, or does it need a new SharePoint group?
That's a good question. So when you set up a team, it creates a new Office 365 group, which in itself has a new SharePoint site, a new OneNote notebook, a new mailbox, and a new calendar in Outlook or in Exchange. So it's a new environment, and that group and that will be based on the name of the team. Now you can create a team off an existing SharePoint site. So if you already have a SharePoint site or an Office 365 group, when you go to create a team inside of the Teams application or the web client, it will actually ask you, do you want to create a new team? Or there's a box there to say, I want to create a new team from an existing SharePoint site or Office 365 group. So therefore you don't have to have if you have a collaboration space that you use in SharePoint already, you can just add or bolt on effectively the Teams conversation, chat, etc., all of that functionality onto that SharePoint site already.
Thank you very much. So that's all from us here today in Reading for Charity Digital News and Microsoft. Huge thank you to Umang, Rich, and Priyanka for some amazing tips and tricks. Excuse me, to make Teams work for you on a more collaborative level. And of course, thank you to everyone for joining us, not just today, but for the whole entire series. We hope it's been of some value to you. We certainly think it has. And thank you to everyone here at Microsoft for having us. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar along with some additional resources in the next week or so via email. And we will have the whole series, all 4 webinars from the series available on the Charity Digital News webinar page for you to rewatch and share with your colleagues at any time. Also, don't forget to fill out the feedback form that we send out right after we stop the webinar. It's a quick 2-minute survey, and it really goes a long way to helping us continuously improve our webinar service to bring you the best possible digital content that we can. Next week, we'll be leaving Reading and Microsoft behind, and instead we'll be joined by CUB and the National Cybersecurity Centre to talk about setting up your risk management regime. If you're not signed up already, head over to charitydigitalnews.co.uk/webinars to sign up, and we hope to see you there. Thank you all again, and we hope to see you next week. Hello everyone. Sorry again, we had to cut our Q&A short, but not to worry. We hung around in Reading with Rich and managed to get all your questions answered. Don't forget to sign up for our next webinar at charitydigitalnews.co.uk/webinars. Enjoy the additional content. The first question is, what does the guest have to do on the other side to engage with the chat?
Nothing really. Once you add them to a team, they'll get an email to say you've been added to a team. Click here to go to it, and it will take you to the web, and then it will ask you whether you want to join Teams on the web or download the Teams client. Once you do that, once a guest opens that link, regardless of which one they choose, they'll be in that Teams channel chat. If you want to chat with someone within Teams, as in one-to-one chat, again, you just type their email address into a new message, and then you just, once that chat window then appears based on their email address, it resolves. You can then just start chatting with them one-to-one.
Great. Next question from Colin. Can guest users be added in all Office 365 plans, or just the business plans?
As far as I'm aware, it's all plans. I think except education. Education is because of the security, the better security control, not better security controls, but the extra security controls. That's the word I was looking for. The extra security controls.
Super. Next question. If a meeting is scheduled, does it update your personal Outlook calendar? I think we covered this. But,
yes, it does. Yeah, so if you schedule a meeting inside Teams, it does add it to Outlook, and vice versa. Once you install Teams or activate Teams in the Office 365 tenant, then the Teams meeting add-in gets added to Outlook, so you can create meetings in either location, and it will update either location.
Great. How do you get to the Team Shares website?
If it's related to a SharePoint or the files section, you can actually, if you click on the 3 dots next to the team, there's an option to open SharePoint, or in a channel, click on the 3 dots, there'll be an option to open the files in SharePoint.
Can you tag items is the next question. So I'm guessing that's like if you work in a project management tool like Asana or something that you
Yeah.
can usually tag.
No, unfortunately not. And there is also no concept of hashtagging either to be able to then search for certain things. Yeah, that's not in the product, I'm afraid.
Okay. Next question from Emily. Can I upload documents from OneDrive for discussion in Teams rather than just document editing?
I assume that is, can you upload a document that's locked for editing? That is a very good question. You can obviously upload a document to then have a chat about it. That's not a problem. You'd have to have already put rights management or stringent controls on that document if you didn't want to allow people to edit it. But there is no native way of doing that inside of Teams. You just upload a document to a channel or to a one-to-one chat, and that allows people in that team to then collaborate or collaborate on that document, assuming it's a document you can collaborate on. So you wouldn't be able to do that with, say, a PDF or any type of protected file format.
Great, and thank you. Next question is, if I add someone to a team, can they see previous interactions before they joined?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we decided upon before when we made the transition to Skype for Business. Skype for Business is a point in time chat. So you're having a one-to-one chat or a meeting. Once that is closed, the contents of that are stored in Outlook in the conversation history folder. But when you click on and go back into a chat window in Skype, the previous chats are gone. In Teams, chats, whether it be one-to-one or inside a team or in channel chats, they're all persistent. So they're there permanently. Even if that person chooses to leave the organization, their access is deactivated, their conversations will still remain under unknown user. So anybody who joins that team can go back and see the history of that channel or that chat as far back as you set, or you or as forever, basically. Yeah, unless you've got controls in place to auto archive those chats, which you can do inside the Office 365 admin portal.
Great. Next question from Matt. When will the option to make channels private and not just a team itself?
So that functionality is coming. It's currently in preview. So we're expecting it to come out towards autumn time, which will be around, probably between September to December, well, autumn into winter. So it is coming this year, and it's a feature that's being actively tested right now, and not just internally either. It is being tested out in the world.
Great, thanks a lot. How can we access the Microsoft Volunteers program? Question from Stacey.
So apologies if this might have been misinterpreted, but this was a reference to the internal Microsoft Volunteer program that we have, in which every year Microsoft employees are given 3 to 4 days to volunteer, it's an exciting opportunity for us to give back to society whilst having fun with our co-workers. So apologies, that's not external, but you can search up the hashtag on MS Charities UK to keep up with our updates.